Welcome to Joyfully Unstoppable, the podcast for women who are ready to succeed without the stress. Whether you lead a team, a classroom, a boardroom, or your own big, beautiful life, I am so glad you are here. I'm your host, Becky Hamm, executive coach, speaker, and founder of Women Lead Well. Join us each week for straight talk, dash of encouragement, and practical tips. Hello, everybody. I hope you are having a great day. We are halfway through summer, y'all. It's freaking me out a little bit. My kids are going to be back in school in a month. This summer has flown by. I hope whatever your summer looks like for you, or whenever you happen to be listening to this episode, whatever your season is, I hope that it is treating you well. Today on the podcast, we are going to talk about your growth as a leader. Specifically, how you can be incredibly successful in your role and still feel like you have reached a ceiling. You work hard, people trust your judgment, your organization relies on you, yet the strategic work keeps getting pushed to the side and your team depends on you way more than they should. Does that sound familiar? I know at least a few of the women I coach, I say that, many of the women I coach would self-identify. And because you are so drawn into putting out fires and doing the work that your team ought to be able to do on their own, that means that you probably don't have the time and the energy and the focus to build the influence and the skills that you need that are required for your next opportunity. And so that's what we're talking about today. And I want to start out by saying that this has very little to do with your actual ability. You haven't hit that ceiling or feel like you're hitting that ceiling because you have hit the limit of your potential or your ability. It could be that you are applying the leadership strategies that created your success in previous roles, previous iterations of you, previous places on the career ladder. And what worked at lower rungs on those career ladder, it's just not going to work now. And it is not going to work as you continue to grow into more senior roles. I have built a program that focuses on executive leadership developing through 4 distinct stages. Each stage comes with a different challenge, a different priority, a different definition of success. And once you know where you are, you can stop trying to improve all of the things all at once, and you can focus on the one area that is the key to your growth to move to your next level. And so today I'm walking you through those 4 stages of the Executive Leadership Continuum. Last week on the podcast, I talked about the Executive Leader Scorecard. That is a free quiz that you can take that helps identify which of these 4 stages that you're at. But as you listen to the episode today, maybe you will be able to identify your current stage and choose your executive priority. I still encourage you to take the quiz. I've done so much work to build the results pages. So after you take the quiz, you'll get an email and a pop-up. It'll send you to a page that has your results, the stage that you're at, as well as your strengths at this current stage, your one area of focus if you want to grow from where you are to the next stage, as well as identified podcast episodes. I've got a specific training video for the stage that you're at and what growth looks like to move to the next stage. So listen to the episode today. Go take that quiz. Of course, the link will be in the show notes, and start to grow and develop and watch that ceiling dissolve. Before we get there, though, I want to spend a minute and talk about why successful leaders get stuck, why we feel like that ceiling is there to begin with. And I'm going to start by sharing something that many of us feel. We continue to produce excellent work. We take on more responsibility. We solve increasingly difficult, complex, challenging problems, and we become pigeonholed as the problem solver, not the executive leader. And so I want to clarify or hone this point that every stage of leadership expects a different contribution. And so when you are a junior in leadership, you are just proving your expertise, right? You're demonstrating expertise. And over time, that expertise builds your credibility. That's the foundation for your reputation initially. But strategic leaders, senior executives, are expert, but they don't get to those roles by being the subject matter expert on something. The next step, after you have demonstrated that expertise and you have the credibility in your particular niche, then you move into the need to work a team and lead a team. So management creates coordinated execution. It's not just about you and your expertise anymore. It's about how you leverage that expertise across a group of individuals for the enhanced performance of all, right? And then as you continue to grow, then the executive leadership, you move from management, which is working your team, then executive leadership expands that into organizational influence. And there's a podcast episode, I'll try to remember to link it, of the 3 jobs of the leader is to look up, look out, and look down the road. Those are executive level functions. And then as you move beyond executive leadership into true strategic leadership, then your job, your focus is to multiply value throughout other leaders. You're not just improving performance of your team, you are multiplying leaders by building other leaders who have the capacity to do the same thing. Say is if you feel stuck, if you feel that ceiling, get real honest with yourself about which of these things you're putting most of your energy and time to. Are you in a senior leadership role still doubling down on your expertise? Because of course you're going to feel stuck because that is not what your role demands of you. Yes, you're still going to be an expert. Although, frankly, there are people lower on the totem pole whose expertise will outshine you at a point, and that is natural and that is good. But if you're still living in your expertise and not leaning into the management of your team and improving their performance and the management of the entire organization and leveraging what's going on in your industry to improve the performance of the entire organization, and if you're not multiplying leaders, well, then the ceiling is there to invite you to start doing those things that are appropriate at more senior levels of leadership. And so through the Executive Leader Scorecard and with the Executive Leadership Continuum, at each stage, I identify an executive priority that is the capability that prepares you for the next stage. And again, this is why I would invite you to take that quiz, because on the results page, it will lay all of this out for you, as well as provide podcast episodes, free training to help you move toward that next step. And so when you can identify your current stage, where you are today, then that is just a practical filter for deciding where to focus. So you're not doing all of the things all of the time. You're doing the work that leverages the greatest impact for you. And to really drive this point home, I would just encourage you to remember that the qualities that make you indispensable in one stage limit your growth as you continue to rely on them in the next stage. You've got to lay those qualities down and pick up the new qualities. All right, so that is why people feel stuck. But what are these 4 stages? Let's get into them. I'm going to lay them all out one after the other. Stage 1 is the trusted expert. What defines this stage? Well, the trusted expert is known for knowledge, judgment, dependable execution. She solves the difficult problems, produces excellent work, and often becomes the person that everybody consults when the stakes are high. Why? Because she knows it and she gets it done. She may already supervise people. You can be the trusted expert and a manager, but her value still comes primarily from her individual expertise. And to be clear about it, you might self-identify that your greatest value is your individual expertise, not your supervisory or managerial skills. And the people around you, your boss's boss, kind of the community, identifies your value as your expertise, not your managerial or supervisory skills, not how you build and work a team. So here are a few signs that you might be a trusted expert. Your colleagues regularly come to you for answers. You stay closely involved in important decisions. Your calendar is filled with execution and problem solving. Your team relies on your expertise to move forward. They always come to you before they take action. Strategic work, though it might be part of your portfolio, receives whatever time remains after the urgent work is handled. You feel indispensable to the daily work of your function. Now here's the leadership challenge. The trusted expert has built a career on being exceptionally capable. Greater responsibility requires you to create value through direction, priorities, and the performance of others. So if you're a trusted expert, your executive priority is to create the capacity for strategic work. And so ask yourself, if you self-identify as this trusted expert, what work am I still personally doing because I'm exceptionally good at it? And I would challenge you to choose one recurring responsibility that somebody else could begin learning. Not to take up today, but to begin learning to pass off at a defined future date. You want to define the outcome, you want to explain why it matters, and give that person meaningful ownership. And you start with the one, and you mentor, you provide oversight. Delegation is not wiping your hands. I've got plenty of episodes on delegation, and it comes up inside the Women's Executive Leadership Lab. Delegation is not passing it off and forgetting about it. Delegation still provides oversight. But the other individual is growing their capability at a more junior level by taking on the responsibility, and you are freeing up bandwidth yourself to do more of that strategic work and to focus on bringing out the best in your team. All right, stage 2, the capable manager. The capable manager successfully coordinates people, priorities, deliverables. She keeps the work moving. She supports her team and takes responsibility for results. If this is you, your team is productive. However, you probably are still central to its daily operation. What do I mean by that? I mean questions, approvals, meetings, escalations take up a lot of the time on your calendar. And here are some signs to further refine it that you might be a capable manager. If your team handles tasks while you coordinate most of the work, if employees frequently seek your approval before moving forward, and that is to say they come to you before they have done the thing, that is different from they back brief you or they fill you in, they inform you after they've done the thing, right? If they come to you before in order to get your approval or your sign off or your warm fuzzy, that's what I'm talking about here. Delegated work, so you have passed off the task, but it often returns to you for revision or completion. Your team member doesn't take it all the way to finish. They come back to you for it. If you spend a lot of your day responding to other people's priorities, if you make progress on your strategic projects inconsistently, if you struggle to protect time for work that requires sustained thought, it's hard for you to give sustained focus to tasks or projects or ideas. If your absence creates a backlog of decisions or approvals, then you might be a capable manager. So here's the leadership challenge for capable managers. You need systems that allow the team to move work forward with greater independence. So your executive priority is to build team ownership and protect strategic capacity. So here's what I would invite you to do. Identify one category of decisions that your team brings to you repeatedly. And so maybe they want approvals on copy before it goes public, if you have some sort of a public-facing role. Or before they start a report, they want to get your input on the structure of the report, what they should include. And so identify that one category of decisions that your team brings to you repeatedly. And then just create a simple decision pathway. Get crystal clear. What decisions can the team make independently? What decisions require consultation so they do touch base with you before moving forward, not to ask your permission, but to have a conversation? And then which decisions require your continued approval and why? And then what information should accompany any escalation? So if they do come to you for a touch point or if they do come to you for a decision, what do you expect to see with that request? And by being disciplined about this, getting it all out, being clear, communicating it to your team, I would put it in writing in an email and then talk about it in a meeting. And then circling back and reinforcing, when they bring you something that is theirs to do, you can say, hey, look, remember, this is yours. You make the decision and come back. And then you move forward. So you reinforce it, but you be very clear in the beginning when you set the expectation. So everybody knows what they get to do on their own, what you guys are going to do together, and then what is still reserved for you. All right, stage 3, the emerging executive. The emerging executive leads effectively within her area and begins contributing across functions. She understands that her impact depends on how well she influences decisions, connects priorities, and represents the broader need of the organization. And so if you're an emerging executive, your leadership is becoming more visible. Your decisions affect people and priorities beyond your direct authority. And here are some signs that you might be an emerging executive. If you're trusted to lead large or cross-functional initiatives, if your role requires influence across departments, so it's no longer your team, you're working with others' teams, and oftentimes without clarified or specified authority, right? You're doing it through influence, not authority. If you're increasingly included in senior level conversations, a boss or someone senior to you will just pop in and say, hey, can I bounce something off of you? That's a great sign. If you see organizational problems that can't be solved within one team, or if you're learning to communicate with leaders who have competing priorities. And so because your focus is shifting beyond your individual team or department or section or whatever, not everybody's going to want the same thing, right? Sometimes you're competing for bandwidth. Sometimes it's resources. Sometimes it's just different specific missions within the broader organization that has its organizational mission. And then there is this internal drive. If you want greater influence over strategy and organizational direction, if you want your ideas to come in to practice, and if you are in this role, the emerging executive, then your next opportunity depends on how other people understand your enterprise level value. It is not enough for you to stand on your own performance. People have to receive that performance in a particular way, different from when you're the trusted executive or even the capable manager. As a capable manager, your team has to receive that, right? But once you hit the emerging executive level, others in the organization and your industry start to receive and filter. And so the leadership challenge for you, or the opportunity, the key, is for the emerging executive to develop influence beyond your formal role and demonstrate that you can think across the organization. And that drives your executive priority, which is to expand strategic influence and visibility. And so here's what I would invite you to do if you self-identify at this stage. Choose one strategic initiative that you currently lead and prepare a brief, a one-page executive-level explanation using 3 questions. Number 1, what organizational priority does this support? If your organization has a strategic plan, well, then tie it to one of the goals or the objectives on the strategic plan. Number 2, what business outcome will it create? And I mean business in the sense of corporate, not corporation, but broad outcome. You can be a nonprofit, you can be government. What's the outcome that you're driving toward? And then 3, what decision or support is needed from senior leaders? Lay it out, get it crystal clear, and then you use your answers to those questions in your next meeting, your next update, your next stakeholder conversation, so that your interactions with the people outside of your department are focused on your strategic priorities and how they benefit the organization. So people start to see you, they identify you with the broader mission of the organization and achieving the broader mission of the organization. That is how you expand not just your influence, but that identification. People need to identify you as a strategic leader if you want to continue to grow at that level. Because your executive visibility grows when people can clearly see the organizational value of your work. And if you want that ceiling to dissolve, people need to identify you with that role. And let me say this, because we know it's true, and we know it's particularly true for women, as unfair and jacked up as it is, your work can be strategically important. You can be doing the important strategic work and still remain invisible. You can. But when you describe your activity, the work that you're doing and your piece of the pie, if you describe those activities and that work by connecting it to the enterprise value, and if you constantly or consistently frame it in that way, it becomes harder for people to ignore you. It just does. And now, stage 4, the strategic executive. The strategic executive shapes direction across the organization. So she makes decisions with long-term consequences, aligns leaders around enterprise-level priorities, and creates the conditions for other people to lead effectively. If you are a strategic executive, then your impact extends beyond your personal leadership performance. It appears in the quality of leadership throughout the organization because it's not about you anymore. It's about what you build. It's about your legacy. So, signs that you might be a strategic executive: you influence enterprise-level strategy and long-term priorities. You lead other experienced leaders. So it's not just that you have a team, but you've got a team of teams. Your decisions affect multiple functions or units within the organization or across the industry. You allocate significant resources across competing priorities. You're responsible for organizational capability, succession, transformation. You spend more time defining direction than overseeing execution. You still might be responsible for execution within your portion of the organization, but I want you to hear what I say. You spend more time defining direction than overseeing the execution. Why? Because you've got a team of teams and you have leaders who oversee the execution. The organization's future capacity depends on the leaders you develop. This is the legacy building part of a strategic executive. And so your challenge, if you're at this level, is to ensure that leadership capacity grows across the organization. Again, you'll continue to work on yourself, but you're pretty baked at this point, right? You're pretty mature and well-developed. You'll continue to learn, don't ossify, but your priority, your focus is on building the leadership skills, capabilities in others. And so your executive priority as a strategic executive is to multiply leaders and create enterprise-level value. And so my invitation to you would be to pick a decision, maybe a relationship, a strategic responsibility that not only you could do, something that is important, but that one of your team across the organization could effectively perform. And then you want to ask yourself, well, which leader could benefit from greater exposure, authority, sponsorship to carry this forward into the future, whatever it is that you're going to hand off? And then you want to create a meaningful opportunity for that leader to participate in or contribute to, or maybe if they're ready, lead that responsibility. You are freeing up your own bandwidth to focus on the work that only you can do, the important work that only you can do. You're building capability in a hard charger in one of your team that has the capacity to grow and step into a higher level of leadership themselves. And the organization benefits over time. Again, you don't pass it off and wipe your hands and be done. You oversee, you mentor at this level, a lot more mentoring than directing. But you help with that handoff and the consistent performance over time. But it is how you build teams. It is how you build other leaders. And you might hear in this that I'm speaking to succession planning, and it's because I am. If you're a strategic executive and you are not actively every day invested in succession planning, you are missing an opportunity. If you are a strategic executive, that is your responsibility to do. As a strategic executive, your leadership is measured by what the organization can accomplish through the leaders that you have developed. Okay, we are going to wrap there. What I would say is, even if you think you know what stage you're at, I would invite you to take the Executive Leader Scorecard, take the quiz. It's not going to take you 90 seconds. It's just, I think, 8 questions. You will get a result that will tell you which of the 4 stages you're at. And again, on that results page, and you'll get an email with the information too, so you don't have to worry about losing that page. I will give you your strengths at your current level, your strategic priority to grow to the next level, as well as free resources to support that growth. So Take the time, 90 seconds out of your life, and grow. And as we wrap up, I would leave you with this. The most useful question that you can ask about yourself as a leader is not simply, how do I become a better leader? Yes, I would always tell you to ask that question. But really, if your continued growth matters to you, then the real question is, what does this next stage of leadership require from me? How do I grow as a leader? That is big. What does my next level need from me? That gives you the focus that you need in order to actually make the progress that you need. And once you know your stage, you can identify the work that deserves your attention. You can create the capacity and the ownership and the influence or the depth of your leadership that dissolves that ceiling and prepares you for greater responsibility. Now, I hope this episode spoke to you. If it did, I would love for you to share it with a friend. We need more women who are laser focused on their growth as leaders, because the more women we have in leadership roles, the better everything is. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you will join me for next week's episode. Until then, thank you so much. I am Becky Hamm, and this is Joyfully Unstoppable.